Okay, this is going to be all the American history notes for this week. So we're looking at three days worth of stuff. So here we go. All right, let's see. Let me make it a little bit bigger. All right, and so we'll just hit presentation, and we're off and running. Okay, so remember we talked about all the laws, and so, you know, Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Townsend Acts, Intolerable Acts, Boston Massacre, Boston Tea Party, Lexington Concord. All right, so when the war gets started, colonists are fussing over whether or not they actually want independence. So a couple of Thomases are going to make the case for independence. First guy's going to be named Thomas Paine. He's going to write a pamphlet called Common Sense in 1776. And he's going to have basically three arguments for why colonists need independence. Number one, hey, blood's been shed. 'Tis time to part. You know, Lexington Concord. Too late to apologize. Okay, number two, hey, it's too far away. Too far away to be able to, you know, tell people what to do. You know, they can't figure out what we need over here from across the ocean. All right, takes months to find out what's going on in the colonies from across the ocean. Okay, and then finally, hey, we're bigger than they are, so the small shouldn't be telling the big what to do. All right, that's unnatural. He was an Enlightenment thinker. The Enlightenment thinkers rely on reason and science, and he says, you know, in space, small bodies don't attract big bodies attract small bodies, and so, you know, the big shouldn't be bossed around by the little. So real straightforward kind of common sense arguments is what he's making. All right. So, hey, take a second, review that. Okay, Locke. He wasn't an American. He's raised an English guy. And he's a guy that talks about a social contract. He's writing after the Glorious Revolution in England. They'd gotten rid of the king and queen without killing anybody. They call it glorious because there's no bloodshed. And he says everybody's got natural rights that can't be taken away. And he's going to say without government, it's hard for men to protect their natural rights. Men need government to protect life, liberty, and property. Those three things. So the social contract's a deal. People obey government if it protects their rights. If the government fails to protect rights, the people don't have to obey it. You know, that's the social contract. All right. Okay. Hey, I'll pause for a second. Okay, so Jefferson is your main author of the Declaration of Independence, but he's part of a group of people called the Committee of Five. There's going to be a second Continental Congress meets after Lexington Concord. So the first Continental Congress, they make their demands and they store up the guns. But then the second Continental Congress really kind of runs things for a while during the war from 1775 to 1781, really for throughout the whole war. And so they appoint this Committee of Five to write the Declaration, and there's three guys on it that are big names. Franklin, our buddy Franklin. John Adams, he's going to go on to be, he's cousins with Sam Adams, and so John's going to be the second president, and then Jefferson, who will go on to be the third president. Those are the big three. Then you got a guy named Roger Sherman and Livingston. Sherman was a judge, Livingston was a lawyer. All right, okay, so there's the Committee of Five. All right, so Jefferson, like Locke, he's a big Enlightenment thinker. Anybody who signed it risks being hung, drawn, and quartered. So there's the picture of it. There's John Hancock's signature. You know, we've kind of talked about why he signed his name real big. Maybe he was saying, "Come and get me." Maybe he just accidentally wrote his name. Sorry, blew my nose right there. And then everybody else had, thinking he was going to be the only guy who did it, then everybody else had to fit their names. All right, but, you know, they're all putting their, you know, lives on the line in a real bad way. Okay, so here's what the Declaration of Independence says. It says everybody's got rights. Government's got to protect rights. If it doesn't protect rights, you got to get rid of it. King George didn't protect rights, therefore we want our independence. Real logical. It's like the general, and then it's going to be the specific. All right, so there's the, there's the review. Okay, so let's talk about the fighting. So that's day one. So that's Monday. All right, so now we're looking at Wednesday. So the fighting, the Americans had certain advantages. They had Washington and Franklin as good leaders. They're going to get money from France. They're going to have home field advantage. The fighting takes place over here. The British, they've got a trained army, strong navy. And they've got several groups of people on their side. The Hessians, which were Germans, Indians tended to fight on the side of the British because they wanted to felt like they'd have a better shot at keeping their land. Proclamation 1763. And then slaves. The British offered freedom to slaves if they fight on the side of the British. Okay. First big battle is going to be the Battle of Bunker Hill. It's fought outside Boston on a place called Breed's Hill, actually. Bunker Hill's a better sounding name. There was a hill a little ways away called Bunker Hill, but it's fought on Breed's Hill. The commander of Bunker Hill is famous for saying, "Don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes," because they didn't have many bullets. So they tried to save their bullets as best they could, and they pushed back the British advance 2 or 3 times. All right, but doesn't work out after 2 or 3 times, and they run out of ammo. All right, at Saratoga. Saratoga is your turning point battle, and the British didn't fight very well because their generals had girlfriends. They weren't really committed to their cause. They wanted to live it up and have it easy over here. The American general, one of the American generals, a guy named Benedict Arnold, fought real well at Saratoga. Then he won a promotion and he didn't get it, and so he switched sides. He was famous for being a traitor. Okay. Okay, so let's see what we're looking at. Okay, so we'll call this one number 2. So after Saratoga, Franklin goes to Paris to ask for French help. He flirted with the ladies over there. He wore a coonskin cap like Daniel Boone, or at least like they'd heard Daniel Boone did. And they're kind of listening to him, but after Americans won at Saratoga, the French agreed to help. The French were mad about the French and Indian War, right? Okay, Lafayette is the guy who's going to help Washington. He was y'all's age, 19 years old. Trusted aid of Washington, kind of Washington's a father figure to him. Lafayette eventually named his son after Washington. And, of course, there's a Lafayette, Georgia, named after Lafayette. And there's lots and lots of towns in America, especially in the 13 colonies, named Lafayette here in Georgia. We southernize it and call it Lafayette. Okay, so then we look at Washington here. All right, so Washington's a big deal. All right, so he's chosen over John Hancock to lead the army. The farmers didn't know what they were doing. Remember the Minutemen at Lexington? They just dropped their guns and run. So they fought poorly in 1776, but he's going to have 2 big events, 2 big moments, and one is he's crossing the Delaware River on Christmas night, 1777. There's the famous picture of it, and caught the Hessians unprepared, and so he won at battles in New Jersey at Trenton and Princeton. Really kind of made the Americans feel better about their chances. All right, and then his other thing is he's getting them through a terrible winter at Valley Forge. A lot of guys wanted to run away at Valley Forge. You had guys without enough clothes, without shoes, without enough to eat. Pennsylvania is cold during the wintertime. And Washington and a guy named Baron von Steuben trained the troops to fight better. And so after Valley Forge, he had an army rather than just, this ragtag bunch of farmers with guns in their hands. So that's a good review. All right, Revolutionary War soldier. They were farmers, frontiersmen, volunteers. They didn't have a lot of money, nice place to camp. They were the underdogs, in this thing. All right, they had to camp in wet, cold conditions, didn't have a lot of clothes. A lot of times they didn't pay, didn't have any money. The government didn't have the power to tax. Washington wasn't scared when the bullets were flying, so they trusted him. But they didn't give up. As long as they didn't give up, they could train and become a professional army. And, again, it's Washington. All right. So that's day 2. 2 down, 1 to go. Okay, here we go. So let's look at this. Okay. Last one. All right, so Washington, let's see. At Yorktown, Nathaniel Greene was kind of run away from Cornwallis. They kept having battles in the South, and so Greene heads up into Virginia. So Cornwallis marches to Yorktown, Virginia. And he's thinking the British Navy is going to resupply him, but instead the French get there. So then he's trapped. All right, so he got Washington on the front, French Navy at his back. So he surrendered, but he didn't show up to surrender. That's not him in the picture there. The band played The World Turned Upside Down. Treaty of Paris, 1783. Double the size of the United States. We're independent, sent all the way to the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River. Okay, demographics in the Revolution. Crispus Attucks was perhaps the first colonist killed in the Revolution. There's that picture. After the war, northern states gradually set their slaves free, emancipated. After it was like a 50-year process, really. But like the next generation of slaves were free. Women made clothes, sometimes even fought during the war. There's a famous lady named Molly Pitcher. Indians, generally speaking, were on the British side because they felt like they'd protect their land. Some Iroquois were on the American side, some Cherokee. All right. I'm going to call that one a week. All right. Let's see how long it took. What do you think? I think it took about 25 minutes. Whole week in 25